Man, this new system I'm trying to operate here is weird, man. I mean, 5 episodes using the same computer, the same process, the same setup. Obviously, I'm not in my old office. There's no Christmas tree behind me. However, ladies and gentlemen, it turns out in my own household, also bad with taking down Christmas trees. So there is one all the way over there that Rachel and I keep saying we're going to take down, but starting a new job, being a parent of a toddler, and trying to do everything else, everything's staying as it is. But what's going on with you, Frank? How you doing, man?
I mean, you could just decorate it for whatever holiday is coming. Like you could have made it a Valentine's Day tree if you wanted to.
Dude,
you know what I mean? Easter's right around the corner.
I'm not going to redecorate something I don't want to be there in the first place. I want it gone. Kudos. See ya.
I mean, you're just saving yourself by putting it up in December because it's probably on its way to being put back down in October, and you just had to put it right back up.
I mean, it's 10 months away now anyway. So, I mean, at this point, we're already halfway back to Christmas. But
right, yeah.
Now, what's up, guys? Obviously, NFL Elite Banter, like always. You got me and Freight Train here. Going to hit on a couple things. A couple things we want to hit on tonight. You'll see here, we'll be talking about the Super Bowl, of course, some of the things going on there, some of the havoc that came after the Super Bowl, and even some awards and Hall of Fame stuff. I know a lot of people are pissed off about some awards for whatever reason. I have a few reasons myself, and there's also been some conversation and a little bit of debate on some people getting snubbed as Hall of Famers this year. So there's plenty of stuff to get into here. But to start off, I know Freight Train loves to go over some of the usually before we're setting the show up. He's like, "Oh, did you hear about this?" I'm like, "Yes, Freight Train, I heard about this." "Oh, did you hear about this?" "Yes, Freight Train." So I'm gonna let him take control on this part. So Freight Train, what is the top stuff that you've seen here the last couple of days?
I mean, one story that popped up this week that's kind of intriguing as a person that I have to face in my own division, but it's kind of a messed up situation. Zay Flowers, the rookie Ravens receiver, who is one of Lamar's biggest playmakers, was involved in an alleged domestic assault investigation. So this is serious allegations for Lamar's top target. I mean, this could be very, very huge, and the Ravens could be back to searching for a wide receiver again.
Well, they still need another wide receiver anyway, but having to start over again sucks.
I mean, this is big.
And the one thing, I know we talked about it before the show as well, but Steve Wilkes being fired felt like the scapegoat, by the way. Obviously, that was the big news coming out of San Francisco after losing the Super Bowl. Steve Wilkes got canned, even though they had a top 5 defense in the NFL this season. They figured out we're going to blame the entire thing on Steve Wilkes, even though we were cherishing him and saying how great he was 2 weeks ago.
Well, yeah, and then you're going to blame Steve Wilkes for not practicing overtime rules in the playoffs?
Well, there was a stat that I saw today. You know what's crazy? Did you know Kyle Shanahan, as a head coach, is 1-31 when trailing by 3 or more points in the fourth quarter? 1-31.
That's mind-boggling. Yeah,
I thought it was a fake stat. It was something that somebody shared on Facebook. Oh, that's not real. I went and looked it up, and I'm like, holy shit, he's really 1-31. Only down by 3, not 30, not 10 points, by 3.
Well, he gets pass happy. We saw it in the Super Bowl. He gets pass happy.
He gets too relaxed, too. The same when he was in Atlanta as an offensive coordinator, even. I mean, he just started handing the ball off, and you lose one of the most talked about Super Bowls. I mean, that one in the throw at the one with Marshawn and them guys are probably the 2 most talked about. What the hell are you doing moments?
Yeah.
You got to be more aggressive. But what else you got going on there, Frank? What else do you got?
Another one. Clint
Kubiak. Thanks, Frank, for patting. Hope you're doing well, man.
Clint Kubiak is now the New Orleans Saints offensive coordinator. I would really liked it if Pittsburgh would have interviewed him for their position, but obviously they went with Arthur Smith.
Nobody wants to coach in Pittsburgh.
Well, I don't think that's it, but but obviously, we know his dad was the coach of the Denver Broncos. They won the Super Bowl. Yep. And he actually has another brother too that was on the 49ers staff that could be up maybe next year, depending on what kind of involvement he moves up to in the 49ers organization to possibly get an offensive coordinator job next season. So, and then also you got Geno Smith getting his option picked up in Seattle for $12.7 million.
I don't mind that, though. I get that he looked like crap in the Pro Bowl. He played pretty well in the regular season. He was comeback player of the year last year. I mean, really, the reality is let's say, for example, you want to go after the best quarterback in free agency. Let's just say they do. They go after Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is going to cost you $35 a year, $40 a year. And you don't even know how well he's going to play there. At least with Geno, you've seen some kind of level of success. Like, you've kind of seen somewhat of a resurgence. And you're getting it for $14 million. You're not going to be able to draft high enough to get a new franchise marquee guy. You can't sign anybody in free agency that's good enough unless you want to pay a lot. So why not take what we already have and pay the $12 million?
I mean, the thing is, you already know what you're getting. You know what I mean? Geno's not going to take
one of
the
the
Super
cheapest
Bowl.
options. Even Tannehill's probably, from what I heard, Tannehill's looking at 15 to 20.
Do you take Tannehill or you take Geno Smith?
I'd probably take
That's
Geno.
an easy one for me.
In that system, I'm taking Geno. I like Ryan Tannehill. I wouldn't mind going that route. But in that system, I'm taking Geno just because
I don't know.
It's a spread offense. I don't think Tannehill would play. No, listen, Tannehill has always been at his best when there's a run game behind him.
They do have that.
No, they don't.
They have Zach Charbonnet and Walker.
Yes.
In Seattle.
But my thing is, though, Geno is also more of a speed guy. Tannehill's getting older. He's not somebody you're able to have for a while. I mean, Geno's in his early 30s, I believe, but Tannehill's at like 33, 34, something like that. There's no point. I mean, for all that, sign Joe Flacco, who's like 4 or 5 years older, whatever he is.
I don't know. If I'm Seattle, I'm looking at what I have on offense. I got DK Metcalf on one side, an aging Tyler Lockett. Like, I think he took a step backwards last year.
But you're not there. You're still not there. But
you still have Noah Fant, who I think could be a good tight end if they would just use him correctly.
But you're still not there, even with picking up Tannehill or Geno, whatever.
I'm not saying just necessarily Tannehill, but I think you can get a better option.
It's like I said earlier this year. Like I said it all year. I say it again now. Like, if I'm Pittsburgh, I'm moving off of a few guys. If I'm Philly, I'm moving off of a few guys. Why? I'm not there right this minute. So why even hold on to all these massive contracts for what? The glam? Like, I mean, for example, TJ Watt is going to go in the same category that I had. I had JJ Watt in a category by himself for a really long time. You know what that was? Phenomenal, best defensive player in the NFL at the time. He was a couple seasons. JJ was phenomenal, but he was put on a team that wasted his talent for over a decade. Then he went to Arizona, and that was a waste of goddamn time.
Wow, yeah.
And TJ's in the same boat. TJ's going to retire without a ring. I'm sorry, but if he stays in Pittsburgh, TJ retires without a Super Bowl.
I mean, it's a possibility. It really is. I mean, it's a big offseason for Pittsburgh, for certainly not to change, switch gears. You know what I mean? Their window is closing. And that's kind of how I see Seattle a little bit. I mean, their window is kind of closing with the talent that they have over there on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, DK is going to get big money someday. You got to pay Walker. You know what I mean? I mean, Tyler Lockett's probably going to be retiring here soon. And then on the defensive side, Bobby Wagner's not getting any younger. He's still playing pretty good. I think he's serviceable. They got some good cornerbacks. Now it's time for them to take a leap of, trend upwards and get a quarterback that can take you upwards. Just kind of keeps you right here. You need to get up here.
Well, and then obviously another couple moves, Eddie Jackson and Cody Whitehair, which were two of the longest tenured Bears on the roster, both got cut today. I'm excited about that as an Eagles fan. I want Eddie Jackson to come here. Had his best 2 seasons under Vic Fangio. I would not mind that pairing again. Plus, the Eagles are short at safety, especially when the injuries took place. We were screwed. Blankenship went out there at the end of the year, and we had nobody to play safety at all. And Kevin Byard's been pretty disappointing, to be fully honest with you. So, could be a huge
but
move.
at least you got him for a soda machine, so it's not like you gave up a whole hell of a lot.
That's just Howie Roseman, but that's just what he does. He'll trade you his 1-bedroom apartment for a mansion in the hills. I mean, I don't know how he does it, but he does it, and he'll make you pay for it for 6 months. I mean, he'll I'll take your mansion, you get my 1-bedroom apartment in the hood, and you pay my mortgage for at least 6 months. I'm like, you know what? That's a good deal, Howie. Let's take it.
That's a great deal. Yeah.
Are you drugging people, Howie? Somebody gave him the control of the punch, man. It ain't good.
I don't know.
But I mean, do you have anything else? Did you want to move on to our next thing here?
I mean, I think we can move on. We
keep talking on certain people, and it makes me want to talk awards because we've mentioned a few people that are tied up.
A little bit of Steelers news. I'm glad Pittsburgh finally got the cojones and let Mitch Trubisky go. They did some salary cap saving moves. They got rid of Chooks Okafor. Finally decided to move on from Presley Harvin, who's the worst punter in the league. So we'll see what happens with that money.
Well, and in Eagles news, we're still great, and we're going to be great. And Kelsey's going to come back. And we're fine. I mean, and by the way, hashtag shout out to hashtag Fletcher Cox for his amazing comments about Debo Samuel. I love Fletcher Cox and all the trash talking. That's what happens when you trash talk before you win the Super Bowl and not after. Just saying. Always hold the microphone until after you know you've accomplished something. Because Fletcher Cox let Debo have it. I'm sure everybody saw that. It was going viral for a while. And then the Jalen Carter thing was pretty crazy. The guy made comments about like his dead friend in a car accident. Feliciano never once called Carter out for talking about his daughter or whatever it was. He waited until Jalen Carter shouted him out for saying what he said. And then all of a sudden he was like, oh, well, Jalen Carter said this. A lot of he said, she said in the league right now. So it's pretty wild.
Right.
It's like watching like High School Musical, but with like men that are 6'6", 375. I don't know. But moving on, though, and we'll talk about a couple of these guys coming up. NFL awards up for debate. Now, we all know I'm an Eagles fan. We know he's a Steelers fan. For all you guys in the comments, I want you to let me know, is there anybody that you thought should have had the award instead? So was there any snubs? Did you see somebody take an award home that should not have had one? Because I'm sure we're going to hit on that here in a second. I'm going to put a ticker at the bottom of the screen here. Obviously, it's going to be MVP Lamar. Offensive Player of the Year is Christian. Defensive Player of the Year is Myles Garrett. Whoop, whoop. Offensive Rookie of the Year, C.J. Stroud. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Will Anderson. Comeback Player of the Year is Joe Flacco. Coach of the Year, Kevin Stefanski. Walter Payton Man of the Year, Cameron Hayward. And Assistant Coach of the Year, Jim Schwartz. A lot of brownies on that list, man. A lot of brownies. What, 4, I think it is in total? Garrett, Stefanski, Schwartz, and
Flacco.
No, and Flacco. Yeah. They got 4 awards. Houston walks away with 2. Obviously, the Ravens have 1 there. McCaffrey won Offensive Player of the Year, but they also did get the FedEx Air and Ground award winners with Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey as well. So all kinds of awards all went to the same damn teams. It was like an all-you-could-eat
kumbaya. Yep.
It was a Browns and Houston buffet. Now, obviously, this is one of the first times that a team has ever had 2 players sweep the Rookie of the Year conversation. Obviously, C.J. Stroud takes it as the quarterback there for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Will Anderson Jr. snagged it at the Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'm pissed about that, by the way. As an Eagles fan, let me tell you something. What's crazy is, fun fact, so he had more tackles than Jalen Carter. Fair. Okay, fine. 1 more sack. He had 7 sacks. I think he had like 32 tackles solo. But here's what cracks me up. So Jalen Carter only started 1 game. He's not the starter. The starters are Fletcher Cox and Jordan Davis. Those have been the starters all year. Carter gets brought in on pass rushing down, stuff like that, but he is not playing. I think they said he only played 46% of the snaps last year. Will Anderson played 73% of the snaps for Houston. And what's funny is Carter has 1 less sack, only 12 less tackles, which isn't a big deal. And he had more quarterback pressures, by the way. But he also had 2 forced fumbled, 1 recovered, and took 1 back for a touchdown, something that Mr. Will Anderson did not do. So it blew my mind. I was so sure that Carter was a lot for it that I didn't watch the award show. I never do. I think it's a nightmare. I think it's a waste of time. It's like watching the Grammys. Who the hell gives this shit?
Even some of the players don't even show up for it.
No, they don't. Well, TJ Watt didn't show up either.
No, he goes to them.
But I thought Jalen Carter got snubbed. Obviously, Lamar was going to win the MVP. I know a lot of us talked about. I thought there should have been a little bit more attention towards Christian McCaffrey, even though I hate San Fran. There should have been a little bit more attention even on some other guys in the league as well. But it pretty much 420-some votes for Lamar. The next highest was Christian McCaffrey, like 100 and something. So absolute landslide. Now we'll go quick, but we'll go one by one. Do you agree with the Lamar trophy? I do.
It's hard to argue that one. Yeah, I mean, it was either for me. It was either down to him or Christian McCaffrey. Obviously,
yep.
I mean,
Josh Allen would have been a distant third, but yeah.
But he had but his finish of the year and his inconsistencies throughout the year.
Yep.
No, that's not MVP material.
Now, Offensive Player of the Year, I don't think anybody's going to argue this one. Christian McCaffrey. We said it on the show before. If he wasn't MVP, he was OPOY immediately. There was no debating it. You can't take away both.
It could have been flip-flop too, and I'd been happy.
Yeah, it could have been. I would have been fine with that as well. Now, we're going to keep this short. We want you to speak your piece. We want you to speak your piece. Like you heard me talk Carter for like 3 minutes there, but without making this to 1 hour, Pittsburgh Steelers, TJ Watt got robbed the second time because of Aaron Donald and now Myles Garrett. You disagree with this, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when you look at just statistically, okay, obviously TJ Watt has more sacks than Myles Garrett, more tackles. He had a defensive touchdown that Myles Garrett did not have, and that defensive touchdown beat Myles Garrett's football team. Okay, when they went head to head, yeah, TJ scored the touchdown. Myles Garrett didn't. TJ had more forced fumbles recoveries. You're going to sit here and tell me you're going to vote on these specific players over one PFF stat that Myles Garrett beat TJ Watt in pass rush win rate. Well, and then yeah, I mean, it's laughable. It really is laughable. In a stat-driven award, you go off stats. You don't go off something that's not even statistically matters in the league. You know what I mean? Like it's not even. It doesn't stack up next to anything. Yeah. Okay. It literally makes no sense. And it just boils down to the NFL doesn't like guys winning these awards multiple times unless it's MVP and it's a quarterback.
Now,
those are the only people that win it multiple times.
For anybody watching, please do comment. Let us know if there's anybody that you thought got snubbed, anything that you would have changed. Again, I love to see all the feedback. I've been getting people on my Facebook like crazy in my messenger. It's fun. I get more messages about this show than I do comments. So save the messages for me having to read them one by one and just comment. Anyway,
it's just laughable. And the Browns fans are like, well, he got double teamed or triple teamed all the time. Bro, I literally watched TJ Watt week after week get tackled at the line of scrimmage because tackles didn't want to give up a sack. Like, don't give me that argument. Like, if you're the best defensive player on the field, you're going to get double teamed. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're Myles Garrett. It doesn't matter if you're TJ Watt. It doesn't matter if you're Aaron Donald. Everybody that is the best at their position gets double teamed. I don't want to hear that argument. I don't want to hear it. That's not a legit stat. It's not a legit stat. He did what he was supposed to do because he's in the NFL.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and obviously that was a tough one. I thought for sure Watt deserved it, but I think we all knew it was going to go the Myles Garrett route. I did see that one stat as well. I was like, that doesn't make any goddamn. Okay, you won one stat out of 37 across the board, but sure, I guess that's the only one that matters. Now, the only thing I will say, this was a blowout too. C.J. Stroud winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. Now, obviously, there's no doubt that he had a great year. He was dominant. However, everybody acted like Puka Nacua didn't break the record for most receiving yards by a rookie wide receiver. And I felt like, and I'm not saying that he should have won it over C.J. Stroud, but we've talked about this time again. Quarterbacks win all of the major categories every single time.
Quarterback-driven league.
Unless there's no rookie quarterbacks at all or only play half the season. Offensive Rookie of the Year, you might as well call it the Rookie Quarterback of the Year award because nobody else ever wins the crap unless there's really bad quarterbacks.
And you gotta put in the account Puka Nacua was their number one receiver. Cooper Kupp is hurt the majority of the time.
Yeah, he had to do by himself.
Yes, he got double teamed and put up those kinds of stats as a rookie.
Yeah. I mean, and even when Cooper Kupp came back, he stayed the number one, which is impressive. I mean, we're talking a guy who just won the Triple Crown of football just, 2-3 years removed. Here's this rookie kid who got drafted late in, the 4th round or the 5th round, whatever it was. So to go from being – everybody made Purdy a big deal, but this kid comes from being a nobody. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't know who the hell he was before he lined up this season. I do watch college ball, but I had never heard of Puka Nacua prior to – when all of a sudden he took off and everybody in my fantasy league were trying to pay each other so they could have him on their roster.
Right. I'm like, what? I had no idea who he was.
Guy? I thought they were talking like UFC or some shit, something a UFC name. I'm like, oh, what? I don't watch a lot of you. I'm like, is that like some UFC guy? No, dude, it's an NFL wide receiver. I'm like, I haven't watched a lot of. Let me go watch that. Shit, this guy's good. But it blows my mind that these guys just get fully It wasn't even a close. It wasn't even a close vote. It was an absolute landslide. Benjamin Miller says Jason Kelce should have got something. Listen, dude, he has the award of coolest mother effer in the league. Everybody knows that, so he doesn't need an award to tell you that. He'll just show up. He'll just show up with no shirt on and roll in your snowy backyard and chug a beer while hitting on your wife or something. That kind of great exist. TJ Watt, I agree. Craig from Patton says I fully agree. He's just cementing himself more and more on the Jason Kelce idea. They should, you know what they should do? They should have an Offensive Lineman of the Year award. Give some love to those big guys up front. I feel like there's no awards for them guys at all. Really, there's really no award you can win other than making the Pro Bowl. That's it. And an all-pro, obviously, which he is almost every year. So he gets all the awards he needs. But and then moving on from that one, Will Anderson, you know my take on this. I'm sorry. Again, it's not
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think Joey Porter Jr. could also have been in that conversation. Yeah. I mean, I know it's another Steeler guy, but you want to talk about a guy that came into his own. Yeah.
I just thought they gave it to Will Anderson way too easily. It didn't make a lot of sense. I mean, I get that Houston had a surprise season, but it doesn't mean that you have a better statistical season. That kind of pisses me off a little bit. But nonetheless, comeback player of the year, it's exactly who I said it was going to be. I said it all year.
I told everybody with this one.
I said it was either going to be him or Baker. I said no DeMar. People on Facebook have been freaking out that it wasn't DeMar. And by the way, although we didn't think it should be DeMar, I thought it was going to be wider of a margin. I thought Baker Mayfield would finish in second. DeMar only fell back he only lost by 11 points. So a lot of people thought that he should have been number one because he was down on the football field. I'm sorry, but
he just didn't play enough.
He had like 4 tackles.
Enough.
Actually, I think we looked at it. It was like 2 tackles or something. They're trying to bring him in for a trick play there in the playoffs, and it did not work out. And then quickly, you know, Coach of the Year, Kevin Stefanski. I thought all day long that should have been D'Amico Ryans. How are you going to give Offensive Rookie of the Year to Stroud, Defensive Rookie of the Year to Will Anderson, but then say, you know what? He's not even the best coach. We're going to give it to Kevin Stefanski.
Who has already won it. He's already won Coach of the Year like 2 years ago.
3 years ago. I think it was 2021.
Listen, I'm not taking away from Kevin Stefanski what he did this year. You want to talk about a carousel quarterbacks. Until they found Joe Flacco, they went through like 4 quarterbacks. They had injury issues on defense and offense. You lose Nick Chubb week 2, who's arguably the best running back in the league.
But if you're D'Amico Ryans, you're walking into a Houston team who has never it's had like
less
one
talent
playoff run ever.
He considerably had less talent.
Well, they're the newest team in the NFL. They've only been around since 2002. It's a 22-year-old franchise, and they've never had success. They've never had a good quarterback. David, you can talk about David Carr. Matt Schwab had his years. Don't get me wrong, but then you're talking about guys like Sage Rosenfels and all kinds of weird
Davis Mills not too long ago.
I mean, but Schwab was probably the best quarterback in their history, without even argument. And here he is coming into this franchise. He was a linebacker, by the way, in the NFL. He played for the Eagles. He was a captain here. He also played in Houston as a captain. And he goes from doing that, and he's able to bring – and here's the thing. The most impressive part for me wasn't even Houston's defense. You would expect a defensive-minded head coach would make a really good defense, which they were. They were a good defense. But the steals they got in the draft with Tank Dell and Collins and having C.J. Stroud in there and being able to revamp Dalton Schultz, who looked like a top 5 tight end all year. I mean, you got to give D'Amico some love. I mean, he walked into a team that had no expectations. No, but if I would have told you that Houston was going to win a playoff game and go to and then get there or at least make the playoffs, you would have laughed at me.
I'd have called you crazy.
Nobody had Houston making the playoffs. I have Houston in the same category as Carolina coming into the year. Actually, I think I had it as one of the lowest records.
I had Pittsburgh beating them on week 4 by a landslide, and obviously it was the opposite way around. They kicked our butts.
Kevin Stefanski was a weird one. Now, I do agree with the Walter Payton at the end of the year. Everybody knows Cameron Hayward has been around for a long time. I think it's been 13 or 14 seasons. A lot of respect for Cam Hayward all over.
Well, they had to throw in a Steeler after snubbing TJ, so
that's probably what it was. Probably what it was, to be honest with you.
I guarantee you what it was. It was.
The assistant coach of the year. I know you don't like the Jim Schwartz pick. However, I think what Jim had to do was pretty tough, though. I mean, he did have to take a defense. It does have some talent, but they've been weak at corner at times. Safety's been a little at times. Defensive line doesn't always get a lot of pressure outside of Myles Garrett. And if you think about it, while you're dealing with all the offensive problems and the offense is not scoring points, well, you have way more pressure on you than ever, and you're forced to step up and make that defense more efficient. Otherwise, like, for example, without that defense, Cleveland wouldn't have had enough time to find Joe Flacco because they would have lost so many games before he even got there. It wouldn't have mattered. There would have been no playoff run. So really, Jim Schwartz and making that defense as tough as they were, he does deserve a nod to be a part of that conversation because of the fact of what he accomplished with a Cleveland team that nobody ever talks good about.
Yeah. See, my pick here would have been Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator for the Texans, because when you look at it, because it was pretty much just like what you had said with D'Amico Ryans. It was uncertainty. He made C.J. Stroud a good quarterback. Sorry for the background noise. If you can
That's okay.
He basically resurrected Devin Singletary. I mean, Devin Singletary was pretty much about out of the league. comes in, makes a difference. Then their wide receivers. I mean, Nico Collins had a good year. He made the best out of that offense, and they were consistent all year. There was times where the Cleveland Browns defense wasn't consistent. I mean, they gave up 30-some points to Gardner Minshew, to the Indianapolis Colts, and barely snuck out a win there. The Texans offense was consistent from week 1 all the way into their playoff run.
So let us know what you guys think. Obviously, our biggest arguments here are Defensive Player of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, and then Coach of the Year, and even maybe Assistant Coach of the Year. A couple of the ones that we've looked at. I like the Jim Schwartz call. He's not a big fan, but that's fine. Defensive Rookie of the Year, I argue, but nonetheless, we'll move on from that there. But so that's pretty much the awards. It was what it was. If you watched it, kudos. I can't do it. I tried to a couple of years ago, and I'm just like, you know what? I've never watched the Grammys or an Oscars or any of that. I really don't give a damn. Just do your job. Nobody comes to my job and puts a spotlight on me and tells me, oh, my God, you sold the most policies this month. Please tell us all about yourself. Nobody cares, and I don't care. I don't like spotlights either. There's that. Obviously, now there's a lot of hot takes here. We're only going to hit on a couple of them. We can go through a million things here. We're not going to do that. Obviously, Kansas City wins the Super Bowl here this year, twice in a row, 3 times total. They beat San Francisco 25-22. San Francisco, by the way, apparently did not know the rule in overtime. Kyle Juszczyk got caught with a clip saying, did you guys know if they score a touchdown, would they get another chance? Whatever. I'm sorry. That's on you.
You got to be better than that. Come on, man.
It does not make me feel bad for you. It does not.
It's just making an excuse why you lost the game. Like, just come on, man.
Well, they have one every time they lose. They lost to the Ravens once upon a time because of this. Last year, they lost to us because of a quarterback. The year before that, they got bounced out early because of this. I mean, there's a reason why they do get called the San Francisco 49ers. There's a reason. I'm not saying I agree, wink, wink, but there's a reason why they've been labeled that, because every time they lose, there's 3 excuses. But if they beat you, don't try to make one, because all hell breaks loose the moment you do. So it's a shit show. And I'll tell you what, I wanted to have graphics ready for this show. Obviously, I'm starting a new job, so it's been a little tough to try to throw some things together. But the amount of guys that are up for contract next offseason by San Francisco at the same time is in.
There's no way they can pay everybody.
Well, no, because Brock Purdy's going to get his first contract.
Right.
Brock Purdy, and if he stays this way, where even if he's not winning Super Bowls, doesn't matter, they are going to have to pay that man like 40, 45. Especially if he makes another Super Bowl run or another NFC Championship game 3 years in a row. If he does that 3 years in a row, they're going to have to pay him 45 at least. And then on top of that, all of your running backs are up for contract. McCaffrey's up for contract. Backup Elijah Mitchell and even their third string guys up for contract. Defensively, Armstead is up for his contract. He gets paid a huge amount of money. What's his name? I believe is also up for contract. Can't think what the hell his name is right now, but whatever. Hufunga, the safety, is also up for contract. Like, it's a ton of not just role players. We're talking
players,
starters, key starters, all having to get signed at the exact same time. And I can't wait to see how they pull that one off.
It's just, when I look back at this Super Bowl, you know me, like, I don't ride the whole rigged train and this and that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a believer that it's really, really hard to completely rig a football game. Like, they still have to go out and play it. Is there certain nuances that you can do to help another team win? Absolutely.
Well, that's what it is. Well, that's what everybody means by rigged, though, is like there's certain things that you missed in crucial spots that would have changed the game. Like, for example, when I pull this up on the screen, the reason why I say holding on for dear life, they were the number 1 most penalized offensive line in the National Football League this season. And they were top 5 last year. No, not just any. In the last 3 Super Bowls this year against Philadelphia and against Tampa Bay, they have 0 holding calls throughout all 3 Super Bowl appearances. By the way, that is the only team, I believe, in NFL history to have 3 Super Bowl appearances, or even 2, and have 0 holding penalties throughout it. Especially, I can only imagine what the odds are of you being the highest penalized offensive line and then having 0. And listen, I wanted KC just because all the shit talking that San Fran did during their press conference tour that they were doing a few days before. But I will say, Bosa was getting hugged, man. He was getting loved on big time. I mean, that guy had 3 guys holding his pulling him. You can see his numbers stretching over his shoulder pads. The poor guy was twisting and pulling and turning.
Chase Young had like 2 sacks in the first quarter.
But that's why though, because
then all of a sudden he disappeared again.
Well, that's because, listen, we talked about this. It's funny. I texted you during the game, and for any of you guys who watched last week all the way through, we talked about, is Chase Young bust-worthy? And I still think he is, by the way. I don't care about that one game. I still think he's bust-worthy, and it's funny. By the way, he's also up for contract next offseason, just so you know. He was one of the other ones. He's going to ask for a lot of money, even though he doesn't deserve it. But that's the thing. They were holding him so hard on the edge with Bosa. If you watch, the entire offensive line shifts towards Bosa. And they're not just blocking. They're holding and pulling and tearing and whatever. And, of course, you're going to find a seam. I mean, Chase Young had the easiest job in the NFL. I probably could have sacked. I probably could have done it too. The alley was wide open because you got 4 guys on Bosa. It was insane. I thought they were trying to kill him.
But it was just funny, like we talked during the game as it was going on. We're just like, this feels different. Like, it feels like they're just letting Kansas City hang on all throughout the game to make sure Patty Mahomes gets the ball last to have a chance to win the football.
Well, I think
we said this like at halftime.
We were wrong on a couple of the theories, but it ended up being a merge of them. Like, we had a couple of different ideas, and it ended up not being like the 3 that we made up were not right per se. But if you take parts of each of the 3 like hypotheses that we had at halftime, they kind of intermingled exactly how we thought they would. It was weird. It was a strange game. It's probably the worst one I ever watched.
It was a terrible Super Bowl. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, it was bad, and like, it's just weird how Kyle Shanahan's not an idiot. Like, he knows that he has the best Swiss Army knife in his backfield, and it was like a stretch of like 4 straight drives where they got pass happy.
They were using him like crazy early, and they were making some great plays with him. They're like, all right, you know what? You're playing too well. We need you to take a step back, Christian. This is about more than just you. We don't care if we win. We need stats to be spread around. And what's crazy, let's put it this way. We talk about all the weapons that San Francisco has. And last week we talked about the comparisons from wide receiver group to wide receiver group and tight ends versus tight ends. And what's funny is, and here's the fun fact, that I only know this because I'm a part of a lot of group pages where Eagles fans and Niners fans slam each other all day long. Fun fact, Corey Clement, the 3rd string running back for the Philadelphia Eagles at Super Bowl 52, had more receiving yards in Super Bowl 52 than Kittle, Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel combined in Super Bowl 58. The 3rd string running back had more receiving yards in that Super Bowl.
Kittle only had 4 yards. I mean, that's absurd.
It was awful. It was awful. Deebo looked terrible. Kittle looked like he was lazy. And Ayuk made a couple plays early. I'm like, oh shit, Ayuk might really turn this up, but he didn't do shit. But if you combine all 3 of their numbers, our 3rd string running back in the Super Bowl, back in 2017, had more receiving yards than your top 3 air targets. That blows my mind. But it shows you what I've been saying, Freight Train. I know that you've been trying to like defend Brock Purdy the best you can, but I'm sorry. There are game managers and there are elite quarterbacks. If you put let's just say you put prime Aaron Rodgers in that Niners spot. They win that Super Bowl. Let's say you put Tom Brady with the Niners. They win that Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts probably win that Super Bowl. I'm just saying, like, there's certain guys
that get crazy here, but okay.
Well, hold on. He wasn't the Super Bowl last year.
I'm just kidding.
I'm just messing with you. But the thing is, there's guys and there's the guys, right? And, like, don't get me wrong. Purdy's been way above expectation. I'm not arguing that. But I think the fact that we fell in love with Americans love Cinderella stories. People love Cinderella stories in general. We all love to know that, like, you can be at the bottom 1 minute and next thing you know, you can triumph, because we all want that in our lives. We all want to see that for ourselves. So I get what the love behind Purdy is. I get it. However, just because he's over exceeding expectations does not make him the guy or one of the top guys. Like, yeah, 2 years in a row, great. But look at the weapons around him. Now, if you were to put him anywhere else, let's say you put him, in New York with the Jets. He's not doing well there. I think he would be worse than C.J. Stroud is in Houston. I think C.J.'s better than he is overall. I don't see the hype. I think Patty Mahomes, if you swap quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, you give Purdy KC, you give Mahomes San Fran, Mahomes still wins the Super Bowl. It's just – they're better. They should win. I think Brock Purdy is a limitation. I think he limits what that offense can do. Now, don't get me wrong. There was a lot of laziness in that game, but I thought Brock Purdy underwhelmed, did not play well, And that was one of the big reasons why the Niners did not win down the stretch. Now, can we blame that on Kyle Shanahan as well? Of course we can. But you still got to go out there and execute. You still got to make plays.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what happened. Like, Kittle, he should have been involved in the game plan more often. Like, to not have a single catch or a target at halftime is absurd. You know what I mean? Like, and then
but that's KC doing their job.
But the best way to beat Kansas City is to run the ball. They're not that great against the run, and you completely abandoned.
Well, we've been saying this though for the whole playoffs. KC had their best defense of a very, very, very long time this year. Trent McDuffie has been like white on rice. I mean, he's been shutting everybody down. They had a great pass rush. I mean, the linebackers like Willie Gay and them guys were where they needed to be when they needed to be there. I mean, obviously they got beat by Christian McCaffrey a few times. That's always going to happen. There's never a game plan that perfectly eliminates Christian McCaffrey. That's what makes them great. Him, the Derrick Henrys, whatever. Those are the guys that you can game plan for. They're still going to do well. Like I remember when LaShawn McCoy was in Philadelphia, there was always, you hear other defensive coordinators, we thought we had the right plan. We thought we had him stopped. You can slow him down, but you're not going to stop him. That's Christian McCaffrey. You're not going to stop him. But they did what they had to do. We can shit talk Kansas City. And again, I felt like it was rigged. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't sit right with me. Something doesn't feel right. However, it is what it is, man. I still think that even if it's not rigged, you need to have a better quarterback. And I don't think they're stuck with Purdy now. They're not going to let him go. The fans will probably lose their minds. But they are looking for scapegoats in San Francisco, so be careful. Nobody's.
How are you going to enjoy your weekend next weekend without a Taylor Swift sighting?
I'm going to love it, dude. I mean,
we've just become so accustomed to it week in and week out.
Maybe me and Rachel will come. We're doing our. We're basically married. We have a kid. Like my in-laws are taking my son for the weekend, so we're actually doing our Thanksgiving on Saturday. And I knew she wanted to go see it when it came out. I think she was kidding. I hope she was.
Thanksgiving.
Oh, Valentine's Day. Did I say Thanksgiving?
Okay.
I love Thanksgiving.
Well, I mean, your Christmas tree's still up. So
yeah, it's messing me up. No, but our Valentine's Day is going to be Saturday. And we were maybe what we'll do, just because you said that, maybe we'll go out, we'll have a really nice dinner, we'll come back and we'll watch that. What was the tour called? The Error Tour or whatever that was?
The Errors Tour.
Yeah, maybe I'll watch it on Saturday just so it feels right.
Or just put her on in the car. That could count too.
She does put her on in the car, unfortunately.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to shake Rachel off the same way that song's shaking shit off because I need to get that out. No more Taylor Swift for me, man. Yeah, but anyway, and then obviously the big news after the Super Bowl. This was not rigged. This was not fake. There was, unfortunately, with something. And by the way, as a Philadelphia Eagles fan, people love to call us the worst fans in football. I will say I was there for the parade. I was there when they first won. I went down to Manayunk. We're on Main Street. Everybody's on top of cars, shooting off fireworks, celebrating. Not one fight, not one gunshot, nothing. I will say I was very, very proud of Philadelphia. I thought it was going to be absolute asinine when I was down there. Now, they did some dumb shit like climb on telephone poles and burn trash cans, but it was nothing life-threatening to anybody. This was a shame. Listen, we have enough problems.
This should not happen.
We have enough problems in this country. Why? I mean, was it to gain notoriety? Was it because you want to be known as the Super Bowl parade massacre? Like, what were you trying to accomplish?
I don't know, dude. It's unexplainable. You know what I mean? Like, we can't sit here and reason about it because it's unfathomable. You know what I mean? Like, it's just.
I didn't expect it. I honestly wasn't watching it.
It's supposed to be a celebration.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just.
I will say though, shout out to those heroes that were down there. They were tackled. The one shooter, at least, was tackled by a group of standbyers, so they were not afraid of being shot. They took things in their own hands, right? Like in that scenario, It's so hard when I went to the Philadelphia parade, the cops are trying so hard to do their jobs. It's hard when there's that many people to navigate and get through, especially when there's panic, right? Gunshots go off, there's panic. So all those people, ton of panic. Celebrities are all over the place. It's a very, very stressful environment. And as cops, there's a lot of pressure on you to do your job perfectly all the time. And I will say, shout out to the standby people who chased that guy. They didn't just tackle him. They chased him down. Like they saw him. They just followed him. So put their lives on the line as well. Unfortunately, there was one person who passed. I'm not sure if another one has yet, but one person definitely passed. There was 20 or more wounded. So prayers to KC, man. That sucks. Unfortunately, they had to ruin a celebration with something as stupid and heinous as that. Shameful.
It is shameful. It really
This is probably the
is.
first one. I don't remember there ever being a shooting in a different one.
No, I mean, not in a Super Bowl, but I mean, you had the Boston Marathon bombings. You know what I mean?
Well, I know
And
that
stuff
one.
like that. It's just like
I'm saying a championship parade of some sort. I don't remember ever hearing about a
no,
gunshot.
because it's supposed to be a fun time. You know what I mean? You're celebrating. Come on now.
Yeah.
Wait.
It feels like something of notoriety for me. It feels like somebody was trying to get attention, and they're like, "Well, we can't shoot up schools anymore. That's too mainstream. We can't shoot up movie theaters. Too mainstream." Well, we'll shoot up a parade. Nobody's done that before, which is obnoxious. It's absolutely terrible. But we'll move on from that sad topic. But either way, prayers to Kansas City and the families. Hopefully, everybody pulls through. Prayers out to those doctors and surgeons for keeping a steady hand, keeping them people alive, and hopefully they all recover really well. And hopefully they never see a Super Bowl ever again either. And I'm sure they won't mind because they'll be traumatized from any parades moving forward. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I try to make light out of dark situations. Nonetheless, final thing we're going to hit on quickly here, Freight Train, and we will pop on out of here after this topic. Oh wait, Craig from Patton just said here, I don't think people are talking mental health issues seriously, and things like that happen, and it says true. Mental health is a huge problem in this country, and we're all aware of different ways. Everybody has their own political viewpoints, but we can all agree, regardless if you're blue, red, left, right, in the middle, it doesn't matter. We can all agree mental health is a problem, and it needs to be addressed one way or another. We have to find a better way of keeping these people off the streets and stop putting them in psychiatric wards where they get released in like 90 days rather than doing the prison sentences that they just should be taken. Just saying, it's my personal opinion. We got to start holding people accountable for their actions regardless. Again, there's ways of having people seek help prior. But anyway, on to another thing that drove me absolutely furious the other day, the Hall of Fame. Now, obvious, I didn't put on the old school guys. There are two guys that were also put in, McKinley and I forget what the other guy's name is. There was two, I think they called them like legacy players or whatever. But the class of 2024, as far as first ballots and stuff like that, your candidates this year, your inductees, Julius Peppers, Dwight Freeney, Patrick Lewis, Devin Hester, Andre Johnson. Now, I will say my favorite one on that list is Devin Hester. Love it. I'm not saying him as a player. I just love they're starting to show attention to those kinds of spots.
Yeah, absolutely. And that opens the doors. We talked about this. Me and Rich talk on a daily basis, folks. So a lot of this stuff we've really discussed, but that opens the door for like Dante Hall, the human joystick, who was awesome for the Chiefs.
Let me ask you this. If you combine punt, kick, and receiving yards the same way that you would for some other guys, does Deshaun Jackson get into the Hall of Fame?
I mean, he was a pretty good punt returner. I'm not gonna lie. Obviously, we know that New York Jets won or Giants won.
Well, let me ask you this then. How about this? Darren Sproles, over 19,000 all-purpose yards. He has some of the most return touchdowns of all time in kick and punt combined, and a phenomenal running back as well, and a great receiving back. So do you think this opens the door for all those guys eventually?
I think it does. I really do. I think it does. And, it's a fairness. Those guys played key roles on their teams.
The scariest role.
Behind guys like LT and stuff like that. They got overshadowed by those guys, but really contributed to their team's success that were critical, making deep runs into playoffs and to Super Bowls. You can't shut these guys out. And good for Devin Hester. Hopefully that opens it up for Deontay Hall. Hopefully it opens it up for somebody like Josh Cribbs with the Browns, who was the best player on their team besides
for a long time, for
at least 10 years. Yes, took kickoffs, punt returns. He's a little bit behind Devin Hester, but I mean, you want to talk about some big kick and punt returns. Yeah, Josh Cribbs. Go watch some Josh Cribbs highlights, and he was a
Jacoby Jones was pretty good in his time too, but not enough. Right. But that's Super Bowl appearance
because it really was, Rich, and it gets overlooked. I mean, special teams is the key to a team's success. They play just as much as a role.
It's them in the O-line. It's them in, you know what it is? It's the ones that nobody cares to track the stats of. Like, there was no offensive lineman stats recorded until like the 70s, I believe it was, because they didn't care about pancake blocks. All your job is make everybody else behind you look good. They'll get all the admiration. You guys just shut up and push. Just shut up and push. And that's what I'm starting to love a little bit here. And I'm really hoping that this is a sign of things to come in award ceremonies in general.
I really do.
And start like we talked about tonight, like starting to view receivers and running backs the same way you do as quarterbacks.
Yes.
Hey, okay, fine. CJ Stroud's the number one guy, but what if he didn't have this guy or whatever it is, right? Like, I mean, we have to start realizing that these quarterbacks are nothing without that O-line. They're nothing without that run game. They're nothing without those receivers. Like all of these things play a role in how successful you are.
Right.
And then in some scenarios, the quarterback can be the most valuable. Like, for example, I mean, Stafford has never been talked about, but 3 of the biggest receiving seasons of all time are all attached to his name. Him and Calvin had one of the biggest years of all time. Him and Cooper Kupp, Triple Crown. Him and Puka Nacua break the rookie record. I mean, got to give him some love too, though. But yeah, overall, I love the fact this makes me feel like the return guys, offensive linemen, things like that are going to start having a fair shake down the line and actually start getting attention. The XFL did. I mean, the USFL when Keandre Turpin, who's now with the Dallas Cowboys, he won MVP that year. And there was some really good quarterbacks in the league, but he still got the MVP. And I love seeing that from different leagues. I just wish the NFL would start doing that as well. I really do.
Right. Yeah. Honestly, my favorite guy on this list that I in my head, I really thought he had a chance, but when you looked at who he was going up against, you're like, I don't know if he can shake that guy off and get this year is Andre Johnson. I mean, talk about one of the best wide receivers that really nobody talks about because he played on such a terrible team, was a model of consistency for the Texans. You could have put Reggie Wayne there too, but I think that like with Marvin Harrison getting in not too long ago, they're like, all right, well, we'll let this guy in and maybe Reggie.
He's been there for like 10 years now.
Marvin's
been in there for a long time. I'll look it up. You keep talking.
Yeah, I think
you keep talking.
I don't think it was that long ago.
I'm gonna look it up real fast. I'm pretty sure he's been there for a while.
But Andre Johnson was that big wide receiver, muscled up, made big plays for like I said, a really bad Houston Texans teams.
2016. 8 years.
Yeah, that's not that long ago, dude. That's not long.
But you're making it seem like he got brought in 2 years ago. That's why they can't bring Wayne. 8 years is a long time. That's an NFL career for Calvin Johnson.
But you got to think, Reggie did it in a dome majority of his career. Andre Johnson, not so much. Okay,
dude, he plays in a warm environment.
And Reggie,
it's not like he's playing in Miami with climate issues.
But listen, he had pretty much one of the top 4 quarterbacks throwing him the football his entire career. Andre Johnson had Matt Schaub. Come on, man.
He never had to share the rock. He was always the true number 1 all the way until like his last year or 2 in Houston when Hopkins started coming up. But hear me out. You start talking about some of those guys you just talked about. And here's the reason why I love Andre Johnson, just for the record. I'm not bashing him. But to make my point, and if we're going to debate the topic quickly here, you got to think about it this way. Reggie Wayne played on an offense where Peyton Manning spread the ball to everybody. They always had a run game, by the way, between Joseph Adai, Edgerrin James. I mean, they had guys and guys and guys and guys. They were a great running team for a very long time. You talk about tight ends. Dallas Clark was always utilized in that offense for a long time. You had Marvin Harrison over there. You always had tight end play. Yeah, you had guys at one point where you had Pierre Garçon come in when he was young. You had Austin Collie, who people forget about, but he had a couple big – he was a 500-yard receiver, which is big when you're a number 3. That's a lot for a number 3 receiver. He had to share the ball.
Gonzalez had some pretty solid years too.
Yeah, I mean, he had to share the ball. He had to wait for Manning to get the ball to him. He had to make plays for himself. And look at the numbers. The numbers don't lie. And he's a Super Bowl champion, by the way, which everybody says is so important. He's a Super Bowl champ. And then you look at it this way and you want to go a different route. I believe Torrey Holt he's not in yet either. Torrey Isaac's in, Torrey's not, I believe is how that is. But Torrey's another one. Played on the greatest show on turf. One of the hardest teams to get the ball when you're on because Marshall Faulk had the ball 9 out of 10 times. They used Isaac Bruce a shit ton, and Torrey Holt was number 2 receiver there. I mean, I get where you're coming from, having shitty quarterbacks, whatever. I get that.
I mean, I'm not saying none of those guys are Hall of Famers. I just like that. Plus, you got to think,
but let me ask you this.
Dwight Freeney is also on the ballot as well.
But let me ask you this. Okay, let me ask you this. Andre Johnson, who I know you like, whatever, but tell me right now, you're okay with having him on there instead of Antonio Gates being a first ballot Hall of Famer as a top 5 tight end of NFL. Let's put it this way. Andre Johnson is not a top 5 NFL wide receiver of all time. He's not, obviously, right? We can obviously agree on that. But we can also agree that Antonio Gates is a top 5 tight end of all time. We've talked about it before.
Right.
We agree on that. And there was probably 7 years where he was the best tight end in football. Obviously, it was Anthony Gonzalez, Tony Gonzalez, then it was him, then it was somebody else, but then it was back to him, so on and so forth. And he had to do it on a team where they ran the ball 38 touchdowns the 1 year with LaDainian Tomlinson.
Right.
But so, like, again, it's not necessarily anti-Andre Johnson. It's just there's other guys who have been clawing and scratching and begging to get in. And I think for Antonio Gates and his legacy, I thought he deserved that first ballot spot. He'll definitely get in next year, most likely, or the year after.
I mean, I would have been fine with taking Patrick Willis off and putting Antonio Gates there.
I agree with that too. I mean, all these short career guys. I mean, like, listen, Patrick Willis is great, but it's not like his equivalent is that of, you know, a Calvin Johnson who had a short career, or a Barry Sanders.
But
like,
was
Calvin Johnson
at his position
every year he was in the league almost.
Right.
And Barry Sanders was like the best running back in the league every year.
Right.
I mean, it didn't make sense to me for this one.
Patrick Willis, I don't even think was the best at his position his entire career. There was other guys.
I mean, he was in that conversation. I mean, there was Kuechly and guys like that battled him out. But like, there was a couple of years where he was probably the best or top 2, top 3. Again, I'm cool with him making the Hall of Fame one day. Same thing I felt about Andre Johnson. I'm okay with both. First of all, let's just make this clear. We both agree that Peppers, Freeney, and Hester are locks. They belong there. They deserve that spot. Leave them. It's just the Andre Johnson and the Patrick Willis. You could rotate that a few different ways, and I would have been cool with it. I just thought Antonio Gates had to get one of those spots. It was just and I'm not a Chargers fan. I'm an Eagles fan. I don't know, man. Let's see. You were talking about stuff earlier. Are there any players that you feel have been snubbed? Yep. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, like I said, Antonio Gates is my biggest one out of the whole list of guys. I love Reggie Wayne. I love all them guys, but they're obviously been on the ballot for a while. They're not getting on first ballot because it's already passed. But I just thought for what Antonio Gates brought to the tight end position after never playing football like really at all, he was a basketball player. He comes in. He goes through the Breeze era. He goes through the Phillip Rivers era. He's battling Vincent Jackson for some attention. They run the ball with LT like 94% of the time, and the guy had one of the most stellar careers you could ask for. It just bothered me a lot that he did not get the proper attention that he should have gotten. And again, I think it's because of the position. I really do. I just think it's the tight end spot. Like,
here's the thing, though. Here's the thing that's a little irritating. Okay, you're going to say Antonio Gates isn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, but you're more than likely going to put Rob Gronkowski in first ballot.
And Travis Kelce will go in their first ballot as well.
Right. And I know about the Super Bowl rings. Like, obviously, that's why they're going to be first ballot, is because of Super Bowl rings. Antonio Gates, they lost in the AFC Championship game every single time they made it. You know what I mean? Like, they just couldn't get over that hurdle.
And me and Freight stumbled upon this as well. People don't realize he had the most touchdowns by a tight end in NFL history, just so you guys know. He also has the most points scored at 700 points even as a tight end in NFL history. And I mean, like, how much more can you ask for? 955 receptions, which is, by the way, 300 less than Tony Gonzalez, only 300 more than Gronk, but he had 4,000 less than Tony because obviously, again, 300 receptions is a lot. He averaged 1 yard more per catch than he did, 11,841 yards, like I said, 955 catches, and he averaged 50.2 yards per game with 116 receiving touchdowns in his NFL career. And you're telling me right now that's not first ballot worthy? Now, Rob Gronkowski played less games, but that's not on Gates because really Gronk was eligible for about 20, 30 more, but injuries held him back. And that's what pisses me off is just the fact that I believe Gronk should be in the Hall of Fame. He should probably be a first ballot just for what he did and how fast he did it. But to know that he's going to go in first ballot and to know that eventually Travis Kelce is probably going to be a first ballot, and you're telling me that that Gates does not belong, it blows my mind. And especially when Patrick Willis has average numbers at best. Compare him against linebackers for the last 20 years, I think he's ranked like over 30th in like every category.
He
didn't play long enough. Even if he played 5 more years, he wasn't going to jump from number 37 to 31 or to 5. Again, you're treating Patrick Willis like he's Ray Lewis or Brian Urlacher, and he's not. He's not.
They're not even in the same class. No.
They're not in the same category. No, if he would have played during their era, he would have been the 5th best linebacker at the time. I mean, you had guys that had great years back then, like Lofa Tatupu, who I used to love. Harrison, guys like that. He wouldn't even be top 5. When back when Brewski was playing and all them guys were rolling out, Sean Merriman's of the world, he wouldn't even be a thought, let alone a Hall of Famer first ballot. That pisses me off. I think it's a fan thing. It really felt like, oh well, San Fran's going to the Super Bowl. We have to put
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I really want to know what these panels, like, who are on these panels that vote for these things. Like, are they just like old dudes that have been around the block?
It's a lot of reporters. Like,
where are the people like us? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like the people that actually look at the stats, look at these players play, and like
I think it should be a consensus. I know they break down percentages as far as certain things go for like AP and all that. What they need to do is for the Hall of Fame, they need to do, and it's a big achievement. So you can have more polls than just one. There should be a coach's vote. There should be, or maybe an owner, whatever you want to do, whoever's been around longer and has more, whatever. You need to have a player vote if it's a current whatever. Have a player vote if you want to, where it can be all-time players voting on this topic. It can be a partial, and you can percentagize. Obviously, you make it percentages, right? So obviously, if you want to have your reporters being the big guys, fine. 60% of that, 60% of what matters is going to be the reporters. And then the 30% will be a breakdown between coaches and players. And then 5% will be the fans, and then 5% will be ownership, whatever it is. But you can break it down and take multiple points of view, take votes, and choose that way. But I'm sorry, but guys like Skip Bayless get votes in this. Guys like Nick Wright and these guys get votes in this. And I'm sorry, you don't have a right to make a comment.
They have agendas. They have agendas, Rich. Yeah, those guys have agendas.
But it's opinions, not fact, right? Like we have opinions. They're not always fact. However, I can say by factual point, Patrick Willis's numbers are factually proven to be dramatically lower than average linebackers in NFL history. He just had a higher marquee because he played in a large market. He made some really big highlight hits, and he had big games. He really did. He had big years. Just not enough. And like, even if you say, fine, you know what? He only played 8 years. The average linebacker makes 12 seasons. Let's say we give him 3 to 4 more years. And chances are there's going to be some injuries. He's getting older at that point. And that's part of why he retired. He was banged up. That's not anybody else's fault. He's never going to crack the top 20 or the top 15 or the top 10. He was never going to get there.
I don't think so. I'm
it's almost impossible for him to have enough tackles to get from where he is to jump up to like the top 15, for example. He'd have to tackle like 190 people a year for like 4 years straight. It's not going to happen. Interception, sacks.
It's really interesting. Like, especially when you see like who got in this class. When you look at classes coming up, like you obviously have James Harrison, who's been on the black ballot, who's not going in. Eventually, like guys like Terrell Suggs are going to be on the ballot. You're going to keep Terrell Suggs out? I wouldn't. I like Terrell Suggs. You know what I mean? Same with like the Philly guys. Like when Cox retires, are you going to keep guys like that out? Like you can't. You just can't. And like, but you put those type of guys in the back seat and put guys like Patrick Willis in before them. It just doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't.
I just thought they went really, really heavy on defense, and it shocked me. I knew Freeney and Peppers. I was really hoping on Hester. We talked about it on the show. I was really hoping Hester. I was really hoping Gates. I was like, all right, 2-2, whatever. I just didn't think Patrick Willis was the right one to get in this year. Again, Andre Johnson, I would argue as well. I'll tell you what. We'll finish off the show right now. We're obviously at 58 minutes. But I will say, and I'll ask you for yours in a second here. I'll even ask you guys to comment if you want to. My finalists, if I had to pick my actual inductees, Peppers, Freeney, Devin Hester, okay, and I'm taking Antonio Gates, and then my final guy would have probably been Reggie Wayne. That would have been my 5. And then again, Patrick Willis gets in eventually, just not this year. Johnson gets in, but not over top of Reggie Wayne and not over top of Torrey Holt. There's just no way.
Hold on, I gotta look at the finalist list here.
Oh, come on. Well, Darren Woodson was another guy that could have gotten in. I like Darren Woodson a lot. I thought he had a great career, to be honest with you.
I got it. So I would go Antonio Gates. I would have went Andre Johnson, obviously. I mean, if you look at everything else, I mean, you're not putting Fred Taylor in, obviously.
No, God, no.
Just didn't play long enough.
He was great, but he wasn't the best.
Yeah, and I would have went Freeney. Yeah, see, I would have went offensive too as well. You know, obviously Devin Hester, and I would have put Torrey Holt in there as well.
Yeah.
It
blows my mind.
I would have made it an offensive class for sure. Like it's
Again,
hard to take. It's hard to just pick one of those guys here.
It would have been 3 and 2. It would have been Peppers and Freeney for sure. Those two are going in.
Yeah.
But then the other 3 are going to be the offense. It's going to be Hester, and then pick and choose. But it has to be Gates, and then whatever wide receiver you want to put in. Really, at that point, it just comes down to what wide receiver do you think is more deserving. And it's probably going to be between those 3. Holt. It's going to be between Holt, and it's going to be between Wayne and Andre Johnson. Those are your options at that point. But you can't go wrong. I just think that Andre's probably number 2, maybe number 3 out of that convo, just because, again, accolades matter, unfortunately, as much as I hate the fact that they matter. They do matter in these conversations. So we're talking about all pros, Pro Bowls, etc. Reggie Wayne had more of those than anybody did. Torrey Holt also had a ton. But Andre is a tough one. I don't know. I'm just – it's very, very tight. But Gates for sure should have been a Hall of Famer.
Right. I agree.
I love tight ends. I grew up in the Jeremy Shockey era, where if you ever look, he wasn't the best receiver in the world, but people loved him, and he was considered to be a top of the line tight end because it wasn't always about the yardage and things like that. But Gates did it all, man. I mean, that guy could block.
Guys like Todd Heap. Todd Heap doesn't get a name.
I love
you know
Todd.
What I mean?
Todd
like
Heap was
nobody.
I used to love Todd Heap. I forgot about him for a minute. I used to like him all the time. Yeah, there's a lot of guys like that. But hopefully, guys, what we're looking at an era where we're going to start recognizing that there are other positions outside of quarterbacks and running backs. And hopefully it feels like wide receivers are starting to get a lot of love now too, which is kind of
crazy. Especially for us that are like around the 30-year-old age. Like these are all guys that we watched growing up. So now like we actually have some validity.
We're not just like,
like we've actually seen these guys play. You know what I mean? So it's easier to kind of look back and be like, you know what? I'd probably switch these guys up because we watched them week in and week out make all these plays. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that makes it fun.
Yeah, it does. That's what we want to see, though. We want those types of things there. Sorry, there's a lot of stuff popping up here. But no, I mean, that's all it is. But in the end, listen, it is what it is. All we can do is hope that 2025 is a better year. Less rigs, less referees. Yeah. Heath Miller was good as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, he'll get in, but it'll be a while.
Zach Ertz might get there as well at some point. Zach Ertz was a big guy for a while there. Led the league in receptions one year, and it was a crazy year. But and by the way, Benjamin Miller from earlier, Jason Kelce better be a first ballot Hall of Famer, or I will throw a bitch fit. I will literally go protest outside of Canton if Jason Kelce's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. And I'll take Freight Train with me. He lives right away. He lives right near there. So we're going to go spend a whole day outside protesting.
I live about 20 minutes away from there, so I'll beat you there.
Yeah. Well, and like always, I don't have anything ready. All my files got erased off when I moved my old computer back to my boss. But big shout out to one of our sponsors, which is AJB Sports, obviously. Make sure you guys check them out on Facebook and on the internet. Shout out to the Triple B Experience with Bubba Brewer. Shout out as well to Larry Stryker and them guys over at Pro Wrestling Extreme Talk and Kal-El at Buckle to Buckle. And then Freight Train, I know you have your show that you guys are taking a break for a little while. But
yeah, well, today we're back rolling next weekend with the Steelers Realm, just Steelers podcast. So if you're a Steelers fan, come on over, download
Even if you're a Steelers fan, you might not want to. I
don't know. See how you are. These Eagle fans, I swear.
That's what we're here for, man. We're here to keep you all humble. But anyway, I appreciate you, Freight. Listen, I know it's been a wild week for both of us, and I'm sure it is for everybody else out there. For some reason, everybody that I talk to is like, I've had the craziest week. And I'm like, wait, no, I've had the craziest week.
No,
you can't feel sorry for myself if you feel bad for yourself. But listen, guys, we're all a crazy place. I just want to finish off just by saying with all the stuff that's going on right now, stay safe. Don't do anything stupid. If there's a little bit of road rage going on, bite your tongue. It's not worth it. There was a shooting that took place today in Jersey where like 3 people got shot in a car because there was a road rage. Just the most important thing I can say is stay safe. I mean, that's it. Like you might want to punch somebody in the mouth, but sometimes you never know what that person's going through or what they might be capable of. You might be a tough guy and think that there's no way it's me, but everybody that's ever been murdered on the news thinks it's never going to be me. And it happens. So stay safe. Take care of yourselves. We appreciate you like we always do for tuning in. We're trying to get this thing to take off here. We got some giveaways coming up for you guys. I hope everybody participates. But in the meantime, we will be back next Thursday, live at 8 o'clock. Remember, no breaks. We're going to be going all season long. And listen, feel free to reach out. You guys want to come on the show, feel free to let us know. We can pre-record. We can go live. Whatever you want to do. We want to bring you guys into the show with us. It's for you, by you, with us. We're just the ugly guys that sit in front of the camera and go, hey, we're going to talk for you. So shout out to you guys. We love y'all. And I think with that being said, we are going to head out of here, and we will see